yeah, it's so great to see the communities coming together. So Baraza and URI Europe are delighted to offer the webinars in partnership. And I'm Karima. I'm the European coordinator of the URI, United Religions Initiative, and I'm your Zoom host today. So I'll give you just a brief orientation and then pass it on to Georg. So we are recording the webinar and we'll make it available so that more people can benefit. So if you prefer not to appear in the recording, just switch off your camera or feel free to change your screen name. So then that should be fine. Thank you for muting yourself during the talk. I think it's good to mute for the better sound quality. And of course, later when we have questions and comments, we'll make sure you are unmuted. So, and if you need anything, please write into the chat and we'll try to assist you with whatever it is. Yeah, so that's it. And last but not least, we've been discussing it's very important for us to offer webinars to you which are relevant and which you find interesting. So I'd like to give you a little task. Please, if you could fetch a piece of paper and a pen. And so while you are listening to the interesting talks, I'm sure if you could take note, because we'll be asking 2 questions at the very end. And so if you have a note, then you could then write the answers into the chat. And so these 2 questions are, first one, tell me one thing that you find good and useful about today's webinar. So tell me one thing that you find good and useful about today's webinar is the one. And the second one is, tell me one thing that you're going to do as a result of today's webinar. Tell me one thing that you will do as a result of today's webinar. And that could be something really simple, like talking about it with my friend, sharing what I learned in my community, or it helps me in my interfaith work, or I'm going to do an activity XYZ. So whatever it is. So thank you for considering that. And with that, I pass it over to Georg for an official welcome.
Thank you very much, Karima. I hope everybody is hearing me. Dear guests, thank you for being with us for this webinar series to mark World Interfaith Harmony Week. We have organized a program of subjects in partnership here with URI, with Karima especially. And I want to introduce myself. I am Georg Popp, president of Baraza, which is an independent international nonprofit organization founded in 2017 in Munich, Germany. Baraza means council or meeting place in Swahili language. A baraza can be an informal meeting or an official council. It is a place where people from many different backgrounds meet to chat, to exchange ideas, and, very important, to solve problems together. Baraza's work is expanding all the time. We were responsible for the concept, planning, and the delivery of the exhibition Tolerance, Understanding, Coexistence, which is the Sultanate of Oman's message of Islam. This global initiative has been touring the world now for more than 10 years, and we have been present in 40 countries and have built up good relations with many individuals and organizations to promote an international mindset based on tolerance in all areas of culture, religion, and understanding among nations. Please follow us also on Facebook, if possible, and Instagram, and on our website, www.baraza.ngo, you will be able to download a free interface resource for children. Our coloring book for kids on world religions is available in many different languages now. Some copies were done in cooperation even with URI International and Europe. It is my honor to welcome the speakers to this Baraza URI webinar series. And today it's my very pleasure to introduce Dr. Noor Salame. She's a researcher from the UNESCO Chair for the Intercultural Dialogue in the Mediterranean at the University Rovira e Virgili at Tarragona in Spain. And special thanks and welcome also to Professor Enrique Olivet, who is holding the chair and who will also facilitate the webinar. Dr. Noor will introduce us to three grassroots associations born during the Syrian conflict who have attempted to save Syria's collective memory and are hoping that this will contribute towards the healing of the deeply wounded country. Lastly, I encourage you to use the chat facility. We want these webinars to be interactive and thought-provoking. In the chat facility, please write down what you have learned and what actions you might undertake to promote tolerance, understanding, and coexistence. But I think now it's time to pass over to Dr. Noor so that we can start with the webinar. Thank you very much.
If I may, just a quick question that I forgot before. If you would write into the chat where you are calling in from, that is so interesting for us to know, to see where everybody's from. Dear Dr. Noor, it's over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of you, to URI, to Baraza Association. It has been for involving us in the co-organization, co-hosting of this event. So we thought, since our meeting is happening within the framework of the World Interfaith Harmony Week, we thought it is necessary to tackle an important issue, which is the absence of harmony in countries witnessing conflicts and distress, such as Syria. An absence of harmony that is reflected by the sense of alienation and detachment that many Syrians are experiencing after almost a decade of continuous war. A decade where the devastating and unparalleled humanitarian crisis and human suffering is also accompanied by an equally unprecedented loss of the nation and the community's cultural heritage. From the major smuggling of artifacts and damage occasioned to its historic and the archaeological sites, to the industrial scale looting and deliberate destruction at the hands of the sadly various parts of the conflict, because we have a lot of them nowadays, unfortunately, to the fact that almost 5 million children, which is the estimated number of those children were born in war, never knew or learned about the heritage or had contact with its contents and components and practices. So the destruction of cultural heritage plays a significant role in modern conflicts affecting the entire societies, as it is linked to the destruction of group identity and can even prolong violence in post-conflict period, which is also the case in Syria. Unfortunately, we are still in the conflict. The longest seems very long till we see the end of the conflict, unfortunately. But luckily, many Syrians were and are aware of the importance of saving the remnants of this collective identity and memory and the Syrian heritage, and they stood up to this mission. So without further ado, actually, some of these amazing Syrians and non-Syrians as well, who I would give them, if I had the power, I would give them the honorary nationality, Syrian nationality. I'm talking about you, Juan, are here among us. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Bisher Al Issa, founder of Mirath Initiative. Originally from Damascus, Bisher has more than 15 years experience leading cultural and archaeological nature hikes and tours throughout the Middle East. In 2004, he founded Syria Discovery, Tajwal, one of the first community-based tourism and heritage preservation initiatives, and the rarest one in the country. Given we had a lot of censorship regarding these types of activities, and this initiative aimed at raising awareness of Syria's natural cultural diversity through trekking, camping, and team building activities. He now lives in California, USA. So now it is morning. Good morning, Bisher.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. So Bisher continues to advocate for heritage preservation in Syria, particularly through his Mirath Initiative, which aims to establish a community-based heritage preservation network supported by the active engagement of the Syrian people in the protection of their cultural resources. So Bisher, the floor is yours. Please tell us about this initiative and the project, the exciting ones you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and good evening to everybody all joining us on the chat and the gents and on the platform. So let me start, and before jumping into Mirath, and I would like to tell you a little bit about my background and how I got actually into this space. I was born and raised in Damascus and to a family that spoke 3 languages, Turkish, Circassian, and Arabic. My last name, actually, Al Issa or Al Issa, that it translates in English to Jesus or the Jesus. This has always been a question mark for me, having been born to a Muslim family. It took time for me eventually to understand how this family title came from when my great-grandfather, who was a general in Akka, Palestine, during the 1900s, he decided to give refuge to a group of migrant Christians inside of the city. It was that particular group of people that gave him his new title that he passed on to his grandchildren. So the reason I'm telling you this is to use it as, or use me as an example of what is it like to be an individual growing up with multiple identities in that part of the world. Our mixed identities are as Syrians is something that we inherit from our fathers. And each has to cope. Some will also struggle with it, each in his or her own way. Growing up there, I remember well how the question of the collective we about who am I and who is the other has always been a dilemma, well, at least for me. Our school system was far from perfect. Subjects like history, sociology were often taught or rather narrated to us as kids from a very narrow angle. In the most part, teachers will sound like they are talking about some other group of people, but not about us. Those curriculums will often ignore the diversity of our society and focus only on the big and the very general idea of the Arab nation. The alternative to understand us, who we are, just wasn't there. Now, when we found Syria Discovery back in early 2004, actually, our sole purpose was to educate ourselves as Syrians about the country's cultural diversity. We wanted to visit the ancient sites, the ancient communities and villages, those that had made Syria, Syria. We did village to village, as Noor has kindly presented. We did village to village hiking and camping visits. Those events were planned, executed, and evaluated later on in collaboration with the destination community. However, the prize winning of all of that was that unique feeling of the togetherness, if you may like to call it, the togetherness with the place and with the other, understanding how our curiosity to learn about each other's heritage and background, cultural background, has brought us closer together. It was a great tool to initiate and to initiate the most needed dialogue with oneself We came back home every time with treasures of data slowly accumulating over time. And we realized the need to set everything up, to think about ways to spread this knowledge as well, but never had the luxury of time to put our thoughts into it, actually. So myself, I've been working as a tour guide for archaeological and anthropological trips for students and academics from Europe and the US. With that and the Syria discovery events kept me busy all year round since since I started doing guiding in 1998 until March 2011. Now, having witnessed the events escalating, I couldn't help getting flashback images of what has happened previously to Iraq's cultural heritage sites following the collapse of the central government. The looting of the Baghdad Museum back in 2003 was a story that kept me awake for days. The question was, what if something like this will happen in Syria? For me, that was the spark that told me that it's time to take this 15 years. Excuse me for this. So the question was, what if something like this would happen to us as Syrians? For me, it's what has told me this alarm, or that was a red flag, tell me that it's time to take this 15 years old documentation project to the second level. We understood that this will require a different level of organization. And I think this is when the idea of Mirath was born. Non-for-profit organizations whose aim to document and support the safeguarding of Syria's cultural heritage. Now this year marks the 10th anniversary of the Syrian conflict. The crisis has resulted in the fragmentation of the very fabric of the Syrian society like never before. The polarization of each other's political opinions has led the country to a situation where the individual's identity has retreated to its own sect, family, or tribe, and with no recognition whatsoever to the collective we, meaning to their shared past with the bigger community that once made this country as a whole. The subject of cultural heritage is one, I believe, one of the few tools available right now for us, if not the only one, to be honest, that can help us build a bridge and reach out to each other as Syrians once again. It won't resolve our political differences, but at least it can, if managed, when managed well, it can certainly create a base for the most needed dialogue. So I think I'm going to wrap up over here and would like to leave the rest for your most appreciated and welcomed questions. In the meantime, I encourage everyone to go on our website at mirathinitiative.org, learn more about who we are, what we do, and what we are willing to achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bisher. Yeah, I also I do invite you. I actually put the link of Mirath Initiative and projects in the chat, so I do invite you to check it because Bisher, you didn't have. I don't think you didn't have. You had that much time, but of course we would like to speak about that more. But you did very interesting projects, which are basically the museum, virtual museums, the virtual museum of Palmyra, and also you are now, I think, working on National Museum of Damascus or something. Well, it's all in the website, but I do. It's a privilege actually to be able to access all this information that many Syria, like the Syrian diaspora, Syrians who are you know, scattered across the globe. It's a privilege, you know, to have such such a space where we can learn about our history, as you said, in our curriculum. In for over 40 years, we have like Syrians. I'm actually Syrian. That's why I'm saying we kind of like been alienated from our own history or our own story, to be honest. So many Syrian and the fragmentation of the social fabric that the war has brought had deepened those kind of cracks that were unconsciously there, I guess. Speaking about the fragmentation of the social fabric and the fact that, as you mentioned, Bisher, or you think that the heritage or the cultural, saving this cultural heritage is an important tool to kind of bridge the gaps or try to save whatever has left of the social fabric, Syrian social fabric. I would like to give the floor now to Juan to tell us, because Juan Delgado, who is also one of the founder of Qisetna project, to tell us about this very, very important one, which I will leave the words to him. But I think it is very important because it tells the story of Syrians in a different way, not as victims, but as empowered individuals who are attached to you know, and it also reflects the longing to defend and to protect small narratives that we all share. So the floor is yours, Juan.
Thank you, Noor, and thank you, Bisher. Yeah, my name is Juan Delgado. I am the creative producer of Qisetna Talk in Syria, and I want to share a screen, if it's possible, to show you how we started. Okay, so. So Qisetna is an Arab word for our stories. And Qisetna started in 2013 with a small team of people you can pass through. They are based in London. We started in December 2013 as a very, very humble initiative. You know, it's our London team with Dima, Mekdad, myself, and Julia Rampen. Khaled Al-Ismaili was also contributing, and a group of volunteers based in different countries from Spain, Sweden, Turkey, Syria. Basically, yes? Basically, we started collecting stories from people across Syria using social media. Can we pass the next? Yeah, thank you. We started collecting stories from people across Syria in a moment that, as we know, it was so difficult to connect people. But we had at that time the vision that was very, very important to connect Syrians in a moment of terribly tragedy. So it was in 2015 that we got the UNESCO. You can click on the perhaps in the link. UNESCO contacted us.
Does it have sound? I need to see if I can give the sound. Let's try so.
Everyone describes Damascus as the city of jasmine, but I never understood why. Now, after my displacement, I pass by a certain spot on the way to where I now live, and a flashback strikes me. The street facing Jahez Park, the long flight of steps.
Storytelling has been in Syria and the neighboring countries for centuries and centuries to go. And within the last century or so, the storytelling tradition became called the Hakawati tradition. And the Hakawati is a storyteller who sits every Thursday evening in a coffee shop and tells a story. The audience who will be smoking shisha and listening to music will be very much eager to hear the story. What we're trying to do with Qisetna today is to bring out the Hakawati inside every Syrian, if you like. And what we're trying to do is to provide a platform for people to tell their stories, a platform where they feel safe to share their thoughts, a platform where they feel they can reach out to people and have the voice, which in so many cases have been taken away from them.
The Syrian crisis is so immediate. And I've been trying very hard to understand who are these people, aside from the people I see on the news who are very distant to me. Being able to read stories written and told by Syrians, it makes them more real to me. Everyone describes Damascus as the city of jasmine, but I never understood why. Now, after my displacement, I passed by a certain spot
on my way to where I now live, and a flashback strikes me. The street facing Al Jahez Park, the long flight of steps up the hill in Mashra Dumar. That spot takes me back every time to my Damascus. I think storytelling is very important for everyone, but especially for us young people who lived their childhood in Syria and then were forced to leave the country and might not be able to go back anytime soon. Do not forget where we come from, do not forget how our country was, and just not let our culture die.
During the war, everyone is talking about how all these amazing ancient heritage sites and ruins are being destroyed. But also a part of this heritage is our oral heritage, the heritage that if we don't make sure we preserve and document, will end up going away completely.
So the cultural, the intangible heritage it wasn't something that at the time we were aware of. It was only when UNESCO made this short documentary film about us that we understood that the story that we've been collecting and publishing in our website were very, very relevant and very, very important to preserve. If we go to the next slide, please. So we were shorting stories for Qisetna written in Arabic. We were just reaching people internally displaced in Syria, in transit or crossing borders, resettling across Europe and beyond. We were all the time asking people, to share memory with us, something that at the time is not a priority for many people, obviously. We were just talking to people in using social media and trying to reach them and building trust in a time that people were very suspicious from each other. They were just running for their life. Basically, we developed an inclusive methodology of building trust using the social media. So we also were connecting with young people who were sharing photographs of the place where they were. And all this material were uploaded in a bilingual website that is online, it's available online. If you pass the next one. We also using social media for the first time in 2014. We connected with a group of young people in Yarmouk, in a place that's been under siege for a month. With collaboration with the Jafra Foundation, We and with our collaborators, Bashan Dawood, who was based in Berlin, we used Skype to reach these young people who were in Yarmouk. And for 6 weeks, we developed a storytelling workshop. We understood after 4 or 5 months how relevant and meaningful these projects were for many of these young people. Yeah, you can pass next. So we focus very much on what Dima said, the Hakawati as a heritage that's very much part of the whole Syrian society. We've been promoting the Hakawati in places like Sweden, in Turkey, in the UK. We use the Hakawati as a tool also in many of the workshops that we've been doing in the UK, bringing newcomers, Syria, who had just arrived in the UK with the local community in Nottingham, in Leicester, in Newcastle, in London. Yes. Scotland was the place where many families that were resettled in the UK came. We went to Scotland and we participated in this International Storytelling Festival, but also we were reading the stories that we have been collecting throughout all this year to children and to the local communities in sometimes very small villages that sometimes they have never heard of Syrian, or the only way for them to learn about Syrian was about, through the main media. Yeah, please. So we contributed to the Refugee Week. A Refugee Week is an annual event that happens across the UK. Qisetna has been presenting our work, reading the stories, and also connecting with local communities. We also collaborated with Bidayat Audiovisual Art in Beirut, and we have been presenting film made by young people, Syrian based in displaced in Lebanon, in Turkey, which are really important desire of having the stories heard and seen. So we counterpoint, which is an organization based in London. We were screening film, short film, animation produced by young Syrians in Lebanon. Can we pass, please? We also developed different events like Voices of Syria that was in collaboration with Dr. Rose Levison in a Park Theatre in London. Again, we invited the local community with the Syrians who were at that time living in London. And we created this event to raise funds for some different initiatives in Lebanon. Can we pass? We also presented Qisetna and the content that they were collecting in places like the Tate Modern. We were presenting the stories to people who had just happened to be at the museum. By chance, they have these opportunities again to connect with the stories that were collected by Qisetna. Yes? We also have partnered with the local publishing house, and we published the book of the young writer Rana Fatak, who is displaced in Istanbul. We published her book, and we also have been reading and connecting Rana across the UK with different in libraries, in community centers, where she could read her book, extract of her book, using Skype. Pass, please. So this is an example of a Hakawati workshop that we did in Nottingham. Again, it was a bilingual workshop in which we brought a group of the local community with Syrians, and for 3 days we developed different techniques to talk about how to tell stories, the technique from the Hakawati, and also eventually we presented this to the local community in a local theater where the participants were reading stories they had produced themselves. We brought this Qisetna to Sweden as well in the magazine called Article 14. For the first time in Sweden, people were reading stories from Syrians in their own language. It was the first time that we were presenting our work in different places in Sweden, in Luleå, Kiruna, Gothenburg, Malmö. Please. We had eventually hit some media coverage, different online magazine. They have written about the work we do. Yes, please. And also other people who are connected with Qisetna, they have also read in all the opportunities like this one in Cape Penridge, in Oslo, or Berlin, Edinburgh. So Qisetna gradually has the voice expanded and amplified. Pat, please. The recognition of the work that we do as an extraordinary example of an archive. This is an archive that is not only an archive for researchers, but it's an archive, a living archive that people can access online. This is an archive that is in Arabic and in English, because we believe that we want to be inclusive and we understand not everybody can read English. So we were very committed that all the content that we produce is also available in English and Arabic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Juan, for presenting this very interesting project and creative one, and empowering as well. So you have spoken about like the power of the storytelling and the arts in expressing a lost identity, perhaps, or for reinventing an identity in diaspora. So, and this is something that our next speaker, Mr. Abdulwahab Al-Ali, who is board member of Nefes for Arts and Culture, could tell us about, because and will present the work that they are doing with music, and he will be telling us about the healing power also of music in this sense. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Would you like me to share screen from my side, or you would share the presentation?
Whatever you prefer.
I don't mind.
Maybe it's, yeah. So I'll share it. I'm not sure about the recording, so I'll share it.
Okay. Thank you very much all until we have the presentation ongoing. Again, my name is Abdulwahab Al-Ali, and as Dr. Noor said, I am a board member of Nefes for Arts and Culture. I am here to speak about Nefes, to speak about also a couple of projects that we're having, but after listening to the colleagues and what's being shared by Mr. Bisher and also Mr. Juan, I think it's very important again to say how powerful is bringing people together to speak about an issue. I am really happy and proud to be in such a platform where Syrians can come. Syrians and non-Syrians can come together to speak about Syria as humans, not as numbers. I've been working in the field of supporting the Syrian refugees and Syrian IDPs for the last 10 years. And one of the key issues when responding and dealing with people that they are feeling or they are living a crisis that you deal with them as vulnerable people. You deal with them as numbers of displaced people, numbers of injured people, number of killed people. But you forget about that those are humans, those are still people with capacity, with heritage, with culture, with feelings and with emotions. So again, it's very important for me to say those words at the beginning, because here in Nafas, we focused on children as one of the key target of our activities that I'll speak about, but also I'll give a bit of a background of the person who is behind all of this work, our founder of Nafas and the head of the institution, Mr. Ibrahim Muslimani. Next slide, please. Yes. So the story behind Nafas, the story behind Nawa Band, and the story behind all the work that we are doing here in Gaziantep now, started with Ibrahim Muslimani. Ibrahim Muslimani is a Syrian musician from Aleppo, who had a specialty of documenting the Syrian musical heritage all around Syria, both the religious and non-religious musical heritage. In 2006, Ibrahim founded Nawa Band. Nawa Band is also a band that focused on the musical heritage, and I'll speak on a different slide about Nawa. In his work, Ibrahim focused about what other part of the oral related heritage, the oral passed down, almost forgotten, almost lost musical heritage of Syria. Those are the rare muwashahat and qudud, and also the rhythm and the maqamat that the Syrian musician heritage had. Again, in 2012, because of the Syria crisis, Ibrahim had to leave Syria. And out of the different options he had, he chose Gaziantep as a new place for him to start, as it is one of the most similar cities to Aleppo, his hometown. Next, please. So going back to Nawa, Nawa is a key project for Ibrahim. He started in 2009. This project was focused on looking to the muwashahat, the qudud, and all the different forms of fusul al-dhikr, and also the religious part of the Syrian music, but also the non-religious part of the Syrian music. Nawa is a name of a maqam, which is also the fifth note of the musical scale in the Arabic language, in the Arabic documentation of the music. And it means also in Arabic the core. The core of thing is nawat. And here also is a linkage between how music could be a core of a person, a core of a nation, and a core of a human experience. So Nawa selects the composition according, so what we've been documented, and the work that Nawa produced in the world of music was assessed not only by the artistic value, but also by the historical value. So we wanted to bring to life music that is not only good, not only beautiful to listen to, but also has its own, what we can say, historical value and historical weight. So this is how we've been selecting what Nawa would focus and what Nawa would produce, apart from what we call the touristic folklore, which have been affected by how the central government of Syria have been showing and identifying during the past 50 years. What we've been trying to do is to look to a different perspective when we speak about the Syrian heritage, and to look to those areas of the Syrian heritage that is almost forgotten because they're not looking into. In 2017, after different members of Nawa Band have been moved and resettled in different areas of the world, Again, we had the opportunity to reform Nawa Band again in Gaziantep with new members, with new faces, but with the same passion to perform the fusul and also some compositions from the first half of the 12th century. And this is something we are working on now. We call Wasl album that I'll speak about in the next slide. Next, please. So after Ibrahim came to Gaziantep and he have settled in here in the city, he joined the University of Gaziantep in the Department of Television and Cinema. And he studied in the university. And you know, when you are in a university, you have a new world in front of you, a new communication with colleagues and with friends. And with the support of few Turkish and Syrian musicians and friends from different backgrounds, they've established Nafas. I have been there in the establishment phase, and we've established Nafas as the first Syrian and Turkish organization to work on the field of cultural heritage here in Gaziantep, looking to the both sides, the Turkish and the Syrian side of the work and the culture. Nafas officially was registered in 2017, and then again created through a belief that the artistic and the cultural production is crucial, is critical to the union, the stability, and also to create a community that is well living together. We did not want Syrians to forget about their identity. We did not want children from the Syrian community to be isolated in the Turkish community here. We want them to be aware of themselves and also to be able to engage with others based on who they are. The vision of Nafas and Ibrahim was represented with what we have here now is as a Nafas musical school, which is where we've been able to teach those children some of the cultural music that they come from, and to bring them back to the idea that they are Syrians, they have culture, they have heritage, and they have identity that they will need to be aware of. And that was in 2019. Next, please. So Nafas Musical School is an educational project launched in 2019. The focus of that is the strategic vision of Nafas was represented through that project. Our aim was to try to provide knowledge about music and about the Syrian musical heritage to different people from different age groups. We are trying to offer a unique methodology of musical education based on the experience of our teachers and based also on our continuous research to try to look to what is the best form of the Syrian musical heritage. And the school again aims to be a platform for the students and the space for them to gain skills and to work with professional musicians, and also to have the opportunity to develop techniques and also ways of expressing themselves musical wise through the support of the school staff. Next, please. Finally, Wasl album. So bringing all of those aspects together, Ibrahim's experience, Ibrahim's work through the documentation of the Syrian religious and non-religious musical heritage, the experience of establishing Nawa Band, and the experiencing of having Nafas, and then the project of Nafas Culture and Art, all of those brought together to this Wasl album is a project where we are aiming to produce 2 CDs with 40 musical pieces, along with a book to document not only the notes, so the musical documentation of those mushahat, but also the lyrics, and looking to the different copies of the lyrics and trying to compare all of this together to come up with the best, most documented version of those 40 very rare mushahat, mainly from the work of the Syrian musician Omar al-Batsh. We want this work to be published and also to be available publicly to the different Syrians in different areas of the globe, to bring them back again to their roots and to remind them what it looks like to be a Syrian again out of this. So this is the gift that Nawa Band, Nafas Musical School and Ibrahim will give to Syrians all around the world, regardless of where they are. This is a quick overview of the work of Nafas, Nawa, the Wasl album. I'm happy to answer any questions, and all of those are available online, so you can go online and look to our different social media websites, our YouTube channel. All of these can be available, and I can also provide any other information that you will be interested in. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity, and thank you very much for all your presence and also your
Thank you so much, Abdul Wahab. There are I'm like really very proud and it's very exciting, very inspiring, and very beautiful to see how Syrians are appropriating their own projects and their own the task of conserving such rich heritage. I can see that we only have left 7 minutes left, so I have lots of questions and comments, but I will leave it to you. I will leave the floor for you, the audience, and also for you, Karima. I think your last word is to you now.
Yeah, so maybe what we can do, because it has been really, really rich and so much to talk about, so that we do an official closing. And I don't know if the speakers and you would be available for those who then like to stay 10 more minutes to stay over. So that might be a good way, because some people maybe have obligations. So maybe we can do it this way, if that's fine from you. Great. Yeah, so then from my side, I would say a big thank you to all four of you, Dr. Noor and the speakers from the 3 organizations, because wow, that has been a really rich, and I look forward to following up on it and visiting the websites and spreading the word about them. So I'd remind everybody of the little task that I would love to do, and I think it could be useful also for the presenters. So please, if you could share in the chat, tell me one thing that you find good and useful about today's webinar, and of course you can write more, but write one at least, please, if you may, and then tell me one thing that you will do as a result of today's webinar. And I can say that for sure I will spread the word about these amazing initiatives. So wonderful. So the last thing is that it remains to me to say a few words about URI, as we are blessed to be co-hosting with Baraza. So I'll be brief. I'll just say that URI is a grassroots interfaith network, and it's the fastest growing one at this time. So the members of the network are organizations or groups. There is now over 1,000 organizations. We call them cooperation circles in more than half of the world, in over 110 countries. So that's URI, and the purpose is to create enduring daily interfaith cooperation and religiously motivated violence, and create cultures of peace, justice, and healing for the earth and all living beings. So I'd like to say, if you feel drawn to this work of interfaith peace, and I want to say there is atheists and humanists also, because we are one human family. So it could be of a religion, but it could be also of other worldviews. If you feel drawn to that, in order to join, you need at least 7 people of 3 different worldviews or religious or spiritual expressions. And then one can become a member of URI. There is a little process to go through, and it's a big joy that Baraza also joined up last year with the URI network, because together we are stronger always. And the very last thing is, I would like to mention that URI has consultative status with the United Nations, and that it has a strong youth branch. So that would be it from my side. One more thing, the next talk in the series is tomorrow. We'll have Jonas Atlas from Belgium speaking about interreligious dialogue and the problem of defining religion. He's an activist and author, so you're heartily welcome to also join tomorrow again at 6 o'clock CET. And yeah, you will find the Zoom link on our Facebook and on our media. So with that, I would close it officially. And for all who like to stay, if it's fine for the presenters and for you, we could stay over for another 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And I'd ask before the participants, if you could write, if you haven't done so yet, please write in the chat also where you are calling in from, where you're based, in which country or place. So then again, a big thank you to everybody. And then I hand it over to you again, Noor. And we can have a little conversation for those who can still stay.
Yes, I'm staying indeed, and I can see all the feedback, all the wonderful feedback here in the chat. I just wanted to ask Abdul Wahab, Bisher, and Juan if you are available also, like stay here like for 10 minutes in case someone has a question or inquiry, or provide more details and information about these exciting projects, or yeah.
I'll be more happy
no problem.
to stay.
Okay.
Hang around for another.
Dr. Noor, sorry, just here I have Ibrahim also. I would like just to say hello.
Hi.
Together.
مرحبا. مرحبا. مساء الخير Ibrahim. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. The co-founder of NEFES for Culture and Art, and
thank you.
Like, thank you for all the amazing work you have been doing as well.
Thank you for you.
So actually, I think I saw a question for you for Baraza, like if there are similar projects in Germany. It's now I will look up. Okay. I don't know. Are there any questions, comments?
And you could put the questions in the chat or unmute yourself and yeah, just speak them into our virtual room, community room.
May I?
Yes?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Hello, good evening, everybody. I am Mira Mansaku, the Executive Director of the organization Uzatimilir, Liberi di Viaggiare, the CC member of URI in Durrës, Albania, Western Balkan, because some of you maybe have never heard about Albania. It's in Western Balkan. In fact, the mission of our NGO is environment and cultural heritage and tourism. And the topic that was discussed today was really impressive and so close to our work. We have done the guide tour for youths last year within a project, and this year we will prepare a virtual tour in museum. And the initiatives and the examples that Bisher and Juan gave us were really interesting. And maybe after this meeting, I will contact them to share their experience, since we are in the very beginning of our project. We have done the hard copy of our guide tour for Durrës. Since our city is 3,000 years of civilization, it's full of cultural heritage and everything. We used also storytelling methods to prepare the guide for the youths. But this new method is really interesting, and we don't have so much experience in preparing this virtual tour, and it will be really interesting for us to exchange experiences and to exchange information between countries and between different NGOs that can be interested. Thank you.
I'm more than happy to communicate anytime. Just reach out and we start from there.
Thank you. I took from the chat all the websites that you have put it there. And maybe I will contact with Karima or to have your email addresses and to be in contact further.
Yeah, or perhaps I could ask the participants, the speakers, to share your emails also in the chat.
Okay.
And so you can all have it, like please, Juan, Abdul-Wahab, and Bisher. And I can see that also the co-founder of Qisetna project, Dima, the youth is here with us in the Zoom. I don't know you in person, but I'm
yes, hi.
I'm honored. Hi, Dima.
Hi,
I'm very. Thank you so much for this amazing. I was talking about Juan all the time, but it's because I haven't seen you in person. But I actually have a question for you. Because,
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, because being so you are the co-founder, and it's Qisetna project has been especially astonishing for me, because knowing the context, the reality on the ground, that we are now in Syria, we're very really fragmented, but also polarized. So when I went to Qisetna project, it was like going to Syria before the conflict, reading the stories. How did you manage to do this? How did you manage to reconcile those kind of Syrians from different parts, and to bring them around this very beautiful project and to tell the beautiful story of Syria?
Thank you. I'm so moved. Thank you for your kind words. I think in 2013, when Juan, myself, Julia, and Khaled met together, we all were sharing the sense of frustration of how Syrians are being portrayed, and it was very much at the initiation of the polarization of political views within Syria. Like, it's been only about a year and a half since the uprising, and it turned into a armed conflict and everything. And the very first thing that we all agreed on is to be non-political, which we were very much criticized from different parties and different people from all different sides and political opinions, because yeah, people at that time, any Syrian narrative was being framed as either anti or with the regime. And I, as a Syrian, immediately when I think of gathering with other Syrians, that's the first thing that we scan each other to figure out. And that's basically coming from a lack of trusting space, right? So we thought, let's not discuss politics. And although we all fundamentally believe that, the personal is political at the end of the day, right? But when we do not be explicit about any political view, we're providing an equal space for everyone who would like to share their stories to share it. And there was something fascinating about that, because whenever we approached any Syrians, or any Syrian came across our project and reached out to share their story, the selling point was that we were non-political. That you can, and until this moment, no one can say Qisetna is pro or against, or it's just neutral there for Syrians. And despite all the criticism we had for it, again from all different people, we held on to that. We really held on strongly to that. And when I look back today at where we're at, I feel very grateful, because this platform remains a safe space for any Syrian, regardless of their political view. And it's a chance for Syrians to come and read each other's stories and connect on the basic human level of who we are and how our culture is. And I wouldn't say was, but how our culture is, of connection, of generosity, of openness. And at the same time, I feel right at this moment, with all the rupture in our social fabric, there is a major need for that space of coming together and talking and attempting to reconcile, right? I feel like it's a reconciliation, and then the title of the event is such a complex, and I do not claim to have any solutions or any knowledge of how one can go about reconciliation after all the loss that all Syrians have experienced. But I know that on a very basic human level, we are all, every one of us is seeking to be heard, to be seen, to be valued for who they are and what their story is. And that's what Qisetna is attempting to do, is to create that space for us to see each other. To see each other first, you know. I know Juan highlighted all the different projects we've done, and it may sometimes come across as, oh, we're only sharing awareness about Syria, but to the Western or to the outer globe. That's one of the things we're trying to do. But the key thing is to bring us Syrians to try and find some common grounds, despite all of the loss we've had. And it is challenging, and it's been challenging over and over, because sometimes, you know, some people would see that, oh, you're talking about Syria pre-war, and that's not really true, because you can go on and see the different stories. And some stories are about people in transition, some are about Syrians in exile, some, you know, so there's this constant variety, and there's a lot of stories on food, and us Syrians are totally foodies, and that always brings us together. So it's just, I think that intention from the very first day to remain non-political, despite all the pressure that we were facing at that very critical political moment in time as well. I think that's what helped us to actually pull through. I hope I answered your question, Noor.
You did perfectly, thank you. And yeah, you answered it by words and by acts as well, by the project that you have co-founded as well. Mrs. Narjis Nurullah, did you have a question or comment? Yes, please. Yeah. Narjis, is that correct? Is this how I?
Thank you very much. Thank you for wonderful presentation. Greetings to all Syrians and non-Syrians, of course, just because we're really kind of feel very warm feelings toward all Syrians, just because of our probably common heritage, so to say. Thing that I wanted to say, that all three initiatives that you mentioned here, that you presented here, Qisetna, it's something very close again to us, just because we have very similar phenomenon. We call it Qisagui. It's a very same kind of oral talk, or oral, again, sharing own experiences. Wonderful initiative that I really like it. And plus this virtual museum, Palmyra's virtual museum, is something that really probably I definitely going to talk to my students about it. And we will talk on our lectures about this Palmyra's heritage and how we can interpret it from serious sites. That's very important for us, I just presume. And another thing, that nafas for culture, the way how you express nafas, it's again so similar to us that I feel that it's I'm not sure that how it's possible to interpret it through music, nafas. And suddenly I realized that it's again so natural, so right to say that we have to have music as nafas. And from this point, just because I do present musical side as well, we have in Dushanbe, we have a musical cultural foundation, and it's on behalf of this cultural foundation, because we work on music as well, I was just thinking, why not to again to bridge this initiative, and I will have your email and I will send our musical pieces that again have some kind of presumed commonality that might be interesting for you to discover from your side. And it would be interesting for us, this kind of continuation of your initiative far away from Syria, and plus it will be very kind of supportive moment from our side. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you so much. There's a comment in the chat which I find very interesting, and it's from Amin Wowel. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Amin says that I think the key is also to talk about the political issues in Syria and not only the beautiful things. And it's something I totally personally agree with you. It is important to not only to speak about the beautiful things, but today we chose to speak about heritage as a tool to that Syrians are perhaps using to strengthen their resilience, to be able to talk about the political things. We need after 10 years, and I'm speaking from a person like who's been advocating for truth and justice, like because we all know that there is no peace without justice, and justice is the big missing piece that we are having now in Syria, unfortunately. But to be able to reach justice and then peace, maybe unfortunately after many long years, we also need to be able. We need to have tools that all Syrians could go around with it, and it seems that cultural heritage in general, like tangible, intangible, especially arts and music and food, as Dima said, like simple things as food are bringing us together, are helping Syrians to forget about, not to forget, but also to remember, actually, to remember that, yeah, maybe now we have lots of things to defer about, but also we have once shared, and we have once shared a very rich heritage and history and story, a big story, because at the end of the day, heritage is like a capsule of a time capsule that our ancestors kept for us, and we're just unpacking this capsules where we are finding those tiny like objects and tiny messages reminding us like to unite, actually, and to try to overcome our conflicts, but without forgetting that we need also to seek justice. But that's a very important issue. But yeah, today we choose to speak about the beautiful things because we need this. I just wanted to comment this.
Can I add to that, Dr. Noor, please?
Yeah, please call me Noor.
Okay. So again, looking to the same issue of trying to look also to the beautiful things. I think there are many different platforms where the political situation in Syria, the humanitarian situation in Syria is being discussed, but there are not that much platforms where the beauty about Syria has been discussed. Having a platform like the meeting today with us, having the pleasure to meet people, Syrians, non-Syrians, to exchange experiences and to exchange stories, an opportunity for us, for example, in Gaziantep, to know about Mirath and to know about Qisetna, Syrian initiatives that they would build the floor for any future discussions and any future work between Syrians and among Syrians. People with ideas, people with initiatives, and people with thinking, I believe those that they will start any negotiation, any joint vision of what Syria should look like out and away from the political debate. Justice is something every ideology and every thinking is looking for, and this is something that is, I would say, universal to seek justice. But people that would seek justice, those who are coming from thinking background. Again, I believe looking to the similarities and looking to what is really who we are as Syrians, because when you are looking to build Syria, we'll need to remind Syrians who they are after 10 years of issues, after 10 years of displacement, losing people, losing relatives, losing livelihoods, and losing also houses and homes and memories. I believe Syrians started to forget who they are, and by forgetting who they are, they would forget what was Syria and why they will need to also think about Syria. Bringing different actors and platforms like this would remind everyone why we are doing this from the first place, and why it's important also to speak about the stories of the people, not only about the tragedy of the people. Thank you.
May I add something, Noor, if the time allows, actually, to build on what Abdul Wahab has very eloquently, and what you've earlier just also said eloquently.
Yes, of course. I just need to ask
Sure.
our co-organizers, do we have a few minutes also? Can we go on? Can we go on?
For me, it's definitely fine. Yes, I think it's an interesting conversation, and I think who needs to leave would leave, and go on. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Just want to make sure you're okay or you're on board. Please, Dima, please do.
I think, and sharing from our Qisetna experience, there is something very important about capturing a human experience in the moment it happens. Because us as Syrians, our own narratives about who we are and about what story is about and our experience before and through and during the ongoing war is ever changing, right? So with the beautiful project that Bisher talked about earlier and the brilliant archaeological history that we have in terms of archaeological heritage, this is the one constant that despite the war destruction and the loss of that, that's one constant that we all Syrians can never disagree that it's ours, right? Whereas our story that will keep changing needs to be captured. And one of the really moving things I found when we ever go back to storytellers who have shared their stories with Qisetna to ask where they're at now and what the story they would share now with Qisetna is, and it's a completely different story. And I remember a couple of people, one of them who is now a father and who's crossed on foot across Europe to get to Denmark, said, I am very grateful to Juan for nagging at me to write my story. Because when I look back at that dark time of my life, I don't remember it with so much vivid because I choose to let go of it. But I'm grateful that my daughter has the opportunity to know what experience I've gone through, because that was his story at a certain moment in time. And it was captured at the right moment. And then his new story is also a part of his journey. And I feel like what we constantly seek as Syrians, in addition, like we're all seeking this justice that hopefully one day, inshallah, we get. In the meantime, allowing ourselves to connect to who we are as human beings, away from politics, on this basic fundamental need to connect and to just be who we are, is very crucial. And sadly, I don't believe us individually or collectively are creating enough space for that. We are giving more space to our political debates. We are giving more space to our home office paperwork. We are giving more space to the fundamentals of surviving, of finding paying jobs, of surviving in new environments or within the country, right? So if we try and use our common cultural heritage, and I mean by that both the tangible and the intangible heritage, our stories, our family stories, our family recipes, these are starting points to reconnect to us individually and to us collectively. I hope that makes sense.
It does indeed. Thank you so much. Yes, I think
I would like to say that what you just said, Dima, I think that's so human. And maybe in the time of the pandemic, it becomes ever more clearer how important it is to encounter each other on a human level and be there together as human beings, hear from each other. So yeah, you speak my mind and heart totally, and I can feel that. And thank you very much to you and to the other speakers from Qisetna, Mirath, and Nefes for sharing your hearts and minds and being with us as people. It's really wonderful. And I think all of us, we need that so much in nowadays world, even more than ever.
May I just add a little story? Can you hear me? Thank you. I saw a video about the last garden center in Aleppo. And the gardener was killed by a bomb. He works with his son. And this was so moving for me that I started the idea to collect money for gardens for peace and friendship. And then we it was possible to send some seeds to Mosul, and to I got in contact with people in Aleppo from Austrian helping organizations to yeah. And this talk today was for me a good inspiration to work on it, to find more possibilities to really build a garden of peace and friendship in Syria sometime. And especially also the idea with the music is so important for me. And if you go on my, Karima knows my work for to collect maps who show something good in the world. And this was the next inspiration to sit down and start mapping the music, the different music presence from all over the world. Salam alaikum, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I have to leave. I have an engagement. I have a commitment now. So thank you so much again for Baraza Association, for URI also to invite us to co-organize this event together, and we're very glad that I think I would say I could speak in the name of my colleagues, my directors, my boss in the Cathedra and the UNESCO Chair for Intercultural Dialogue and Training in Rovira e Virgili, Università Rovira e Virgili, to say that it has been like a great pleasure for us to connect, to create this little space to introduce these inspiring stories, these inspiring initiatives and projects to a broader network. So thank you so much for helping us in creating this space, and I hope see you all soon somewhere.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Dr.
so
Noor
much.
and the UNESCO chair. It's been super rich. Yeah, it would be wonderful to keep in touch somehow, even with the other talks, and who knows what's coming out of that. So thank you, big thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Good night,
very much,
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Salam.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Have
you,
a nice
everyone.
evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.